Hello, lovelies. This is 5 Minute Manifesting, and I'm your host, Lovey Brown. Thank you so much for listening. I'm thrilled that you're here, as always. And today I want to ask you a question about the story you're telling yourself. So, like in manifesting communities, in my work and other people's work, you often hear you just need to change the old story, right? Because it's the old story that's creating the reality that you're currently living in. And if you change that and you tell yourself a new story, then you will change the reality. You will be living in a different reality. It will push out from you, from your inner talking, from your inner conversations, from the story that you're telling yourself, from the narrative, that you're believing about your world and your life and the people around you. Now, but I have a really important question to ask you about your story that you're telling yourself. Is the reason that you hang on to the old story, if you still are, and I find myself occasionally doing this, even though I know that it works to change it, is the reason that you're holding on to it because it makes you feel good? You get some sort of pleasure in some part of yourself from the old story, that there's some sort of payoff. Right? There's some sort of payoff for you. And let me give you an example of what I'm talking about, if you're not catching on to what I'm talking about. So say you're manifesting a specific person, and this person was an ex, and you're manifesting this person back in your life, but they committed some sort of slight towards you. They cheated on you, or they treated you in a way that isn't preferable, whatever it is, right? Like, and that happens. And it doesn't mean that those events, like if you've been cheated on, that event is painful. If you've had somebody slight you in some sort of way, that is painful. And so holding on to the story sometimes about someone, about they did this thing, can feel good in a way. Because one, your evidence around you tells you that they did do this thing. This is a thing that actually happened in the past. And that doesn't mean that in the future, when you do manifest this person back in your life, that you don't have some sort of conversation about it, or some sort of conversation about boundaries, or some sort of understanding about what your relationship is going to be like. And that is not going to be a part of that relationship. But if you continually hold on to this story during the manifesting process, when you're trying to manifest this person back, you continually just tell yourself how hurt you are and how upsetting this person's behavior is to you, and how, how could they do that to you? That sort of thing. Now, there is an element when you're doing that kind of self-talk, when you're doing that kind of inner conversation, when that's the story that you're telling yourself, when you're telling yourself that story because you think it's true, right? And it is true based on your past. But remember, you can revise your past, and you can do all sorts of things, depending on how you want to approach it and manifest the outcome that you want to manifest. But if you hang on to that portion of it dominantly, you're not going to manifest the outcome you want to manifest. You're going to manifest more of what you've already had that you don't enjoy. But you could be hanging on to that story because it soothes you in some way, because it feels good. So let me give you a lower stakes example. So I'm trying to manifest something in a relationship with a coworker that I want to be a little bit more at ease, a little more comfortable, just a little better for both of us, I would hope. But for me specifically, I want it to be a little easier. I want it to be a little bit better. But there are some things I keep telling myself about this coworker that, one, it feels true. And two, it feels like I get some sort of pleasure in it, right? Like my anger or annoyance or whatever it is kind of feels good. I kind of feel vindicated. I kind of feel justified in having that story played in my head. However, because I have that story playing in my head, even though it feels a little bit good, it's not the outcome I want. It's not what I'm manifesting. So I know I need to change that story. Like, I am the person who has to let that story go inside of my head, inside of my own internal world, for this manifestation to really work the way I want it to work. Now, you can always loophole things. Like, if you, so don't hear this and think like, I just don't think I can forget something that's really traumatic or really big or whatever it is. You don't have to forget anything. And in fact, you can always loophole it, like I was saying, and, like, I can have a lot of resistance. I can be angry and still get my manifestation anyway. But what you don't want to do is actively choose in your internal world the old story over and over again dominantly. Because when you're making that choice in your internal world, you're kind of, you're activating it. You're keeping it going. When you, in your internal world, you need to be actively making the choice of the thing you are manifesting, the outcome you do want to see. Now, when those other thoughts come, the thoughts of the memory of the past thing or the anger, they can be there. It can be fine. But what you don't want to do in that moment, you just kind of want to observe that anger and be like, yeah, I know. It's okay. Or whatever sort of thing that you want to say to yourself in that circumstance. But you don't want to grab onto it and kind of dig deep. Now, another tactic I've worked out for myself is that, like, I'll give myself a time limit. I'll say, like, okay, yeah, I know you're really mad about this and you really, really want to just say all these things. So you have, 20 more minutes to really sit in this story. Or even if I want to give myself longer, I give myself longer. You have a week. You have a week to sit in this story, but then we really need to let this go. And you choose all of that, right? It's yourself, your internal world making these choices. But you can only do that when your awareness, yourself, your internal world, is really aware that that's what you're doing. Because I find myself doing that sometimes where I'm holding on to the old story, like I'm making that choice, but I'm not aware that I'm making that choice. I don't have enough awareness. And when I catch myself, I sometimes have to make a decision like, do I even want to? Because there's some sort of payoff for me to have the old story, to hang on to anger or annoyance or whatever it is. And so, but I have to choose between that choice and holding on to that and my manifestation. And I know that I want my manifestation, so I make a different choice. So I intend that is helpful for you, and with that, may you manifest exactly what you want.